What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
Today, my guest is LaRock. I don't know if you heard of this kid, but he's dope house DJ on the rise. He's a protege of the great Todd Terry, one of the godfathers of New York house. And he's got some really good lessons for us, especially for a young kid in the game, teaching us about the importance of disconnecting. He's got a really interesting theory about how he blocks out influences as opposed to letting them in so that he can stay focused on what he's trying to create. And he talks a lot about the pivot. Before he got to this point in his career, he explored a bunch of different musical styles. I think there's going to be a lot here for you, so I hope you enjoy it. As always, don't forget to subscribe to Rebel Radio at iTunes. Leave us a comment or a review. And now let's hear what LaRock has to say. So take us back. You've always been into music. You come from a musical background, right?
I do.
So what's the beginning?
Man, picking up a guitar at listening to Zeppelin records and being a young teenager like everybody else, and it's like you get that first good Zeppelin record or whatever you get your hands on from your dad.
What was it? What was the record?
Man, I would say the Zeppelin 4 was like such a big one for everybody. I think, and then like Dark Side of the Moon, and you pick that up and like you hear these textures and these guitars and these sounds, especially like with Pink Floyd, like the synthesis on that, and you pick that up as a kid, and it's like it's different enough from the stuff you like grew up and like kind of had jammed down your throat as a kid. Yeah. So I remember getting those albums and being like, how do you make this like right off the bat?
Really?
What how'd this happen?
Like how old? How old are you now?
Like 13, 14 at that point. Yeah. And then you pick up a guitar for the first time. At least I did, and I kind of knew it was like, there goes the dreams of like being the firefighter or the architect. I kind of knew right away. I was like, well, I'm screwed. This is what I'm going to be doing for a while.
Yeah.
And
in your bands and stuff.
Yeah, typical like suburban, like get together with some buddies.
Yeah.
I ended up being the last one of my friends to play guitar, so I got stuck on bass. And at first I that old story. And I kind of regretted it at first, and that ended up being probably one of the most helpful things to me because learning that the bass is such the middle ground between the percussion and the rhythm elements, and that really, especially for house music and like groove and being like a bass like pocket funk player like from the age of 14 on was like really what put me here today. So
nice. Yeah,
bands and another really lucky thing that happened to me probably in the mid 90s. I'd always been like a computer geek my whole life. I started getting into recording like pretty early on for a lot of people to even be doing it at home if you didn't have a real studio.
Sure.
So
yeah.
That was a big jump for me too, because my whole thing was, it's like you're an artist and you paint or you draw,
right,
or you're a writer, you have a tangible piece of work on paper.
Yeah.
Like as a musician, you could rehearse a song 30 times and you could play it and you could write something, but it's not there until you record it.
Yeah.
So I think I knew really early on like the importance of being like, hey, let's like kind of get this on tape. Like let's make this like a thing,
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I get it. Like, kids have bands and they end up, playing in their garages, and, some of them get to a club, play a show or whatever. But, until kind of right around that time, like the idea of getting a recording down, it was just out of reach. Because it was too expensive, too hard to,
especially with
get
a
into
full
a studio
band.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first time ever trying to record drums, like what a nightmare, So
I imagine.
So so like I think with bands you realize you kind of need that like bigger setup, and it is daunting. It's like, how do we even like do this? It's like that movie Airheads. you're trying to like scrap together your buddies and like make a recording and get it on tape and then get it out to people. It's like that was being a kid for me. That was, and you learn a lot too through that process too. I mean, it is a lot easier now to get everything done at home, even for bands, especially for dance artists like myself. But yeah, you really like have to like pull together resources and get crafty and figure out ways to make it happen.
Yeah.
So years of doing that like really made it a lot simpler now to just sit in my house like a nerd with a bunch of keyboards and
Sure.
get tracks finished.
Of course. It's funny is that like I wasn't really a rock kid, but one of my earliest memories, period, of anything is that Hindenburg. Is just the cover. My dad had it.
Oh, just the first track.
I was like 2 years old. I just remember seeing the picture. I didn't even know what it sounded like until much later.
Yeah, that's iconic.
Yeah.
We have predominantly hip hop background, right?
Yeah, yeah. Although it's been a winding path for sure.
Yeah.
But so did the bands? Did you go anywhere with the bands?
No.
Okay.
Simple answer, no. Yeah, nothing on the success level.
Yeah.
And thankfully for me in my life at the time, there was no level of success or monetary compensation for that. Lord knows I probably wouldn't be here. But yeah, just, I mean, like anything in life, the lessons learned and, you know, the things that I carried with me from that. Not to mention becoming a multi-instrumentalist because of it. Because of, like I said, hearing those sounds so early on and then wanting to recreate them. Well, it worked the same with every instrument. It's like, cool, all right, well, how's the drummer doing this? And how's the relationship between the bass and the drums? You know, like, why is that so important? So I wanted to play everything too. You know, kind of have that entire culmination of like what it takes to make music on like every different level, not just the one guy in the band. Plus I was the bass player, so you know, kind of wanted like a little bit more recognition.
Sure.
The typical story. So
yeah.
I definitely
bass guys in the back.
Yeah. Never getting the chick.
Right.
But no, I always wanted to really dive into every element of it to learn it. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you sort of switch genres? Like it seems like classic rock and house music are like pretty far apart on the spectrum.
Yeah. Well, shortly after, you know, the love affair I think that most suburban white kids have with classic rock, what my father's real passions were bands like Tower of Power and a lot of the really big funk stuff from you know, mid to late 70s. And I think once I kind of grew and absorbed like the like Led Zeppelin classic rock phase of my life, that was like, I heard that and I heard those horns and I heard, especially being a bass player, like Rocco Prestia from Tower of Power, just like these amazing like pocket players, and that really was a catalyst to like throw me to like a whole other world. So then from there was George Clinton, P-Funk, all the Parliament Funkadelic was really big to me. And
was there a record that like had a moment for you?
Tracks. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything. I mean, what's the tune? We Want the Funk, Give Up the Funk. It's been so long since I've even listened to it, but just really hearing those like iconic like Parliament tunes.
I think it's
really
Give
big.
Up the Funk.
Give Up the, yeah, we're close. But actually what I think kind of made it a little bit more solidified in my head was getting Herbie Hancock's Headhunters album and hearing Paul Jackson, the bass player, and Mike Clark, the drummer, like what they were doing together, like as, you know, the drum and bass ensemble was like mind-blowing to me at the time. Never mind having Herbie Hancock on top of it. But that was actually where I started to kind of veer towards jazz and groove playing and pocket playing and stuff like that. And man, that really changed me. And then you know, finding newer groups like Jamiroquai and Brand New Heavies and stuff that were kind of making that a contemporary sound. And then also too, like the other whole side of me my whole life, like I think the first tape that I ever had was Run DMC Raising Hell, and I was like 7 years old. So that's always been kind of like this other side of me that was like growing in parallel with this too. Wow. So when I was able to actually start putting together my first productions, I went actually right towards the hip hop side of things, because you know, I'd already had kind of the band stuff and was doing recordings with them, but to really sit down on my own and really explore it, it was definitely like, well, and then, by the time 96 rolled around and DJ Shadow's Introducing came out, like stuff like that, like these really intense like solo production pieces of these like, kind of like, I mean, you had your Pete Rocks and, by that time, I mean, I always like, had a good understanding of who like Rick Rubin was and like what 808s were. And, so like 96, 97, getting a hold of like some really good hip hop recordings and like I said, DJ Shadow and stuff like that, definitely opened up another whole part of my brain too. So as I was doing the rock stuff on one hand, I definitely had this like very rooted in hip hop, like groove playing for me as well too. So, yeah, by the time I really got heavily steeped in it in the late 90s, and starting to move a little bit away from the band stuff, like getting into the production stuff, it was like, the trip hoppy hip hop stuff, and really learning the fundamentals of like I said, what drum machines are, what sampling is, how did they take this thing from this record and turn it into a loop that you could listen to for 2 hours nonstop.
Right.
So I think that was like a big thing that really bridged the gap for me. And then by the late 90s, probably like 97, 98, I started getting into the dance music scene. Okay. And immediately there, it was like, it was hard to ignore like the drum and bass thing and like, the metalheads and Goldie, especially like mid to late 90s. I mean, the first time you hit play on one of those records, like, you almost don't even know like what's hitting you in the face.
Especially back then.
Yeah, especially back then.
Yeah.
And that kind of pulled me into that like the rave culture pretty early on, and then especially like a lot of the funkier house stuff, like the DJ dance stuff. And, but to me, it was like it all kind of felt the same. It's like here's guys that are sampling these same funk and groove records that I loved, for years before. And then turning it into a dance house thing. And I kind of almost didn't understand it, and it was pretty good to be naive with it because it was like, it was just kind of the same feel and the same colors and the same groove to me. Yeah. So I didn't really like overthink it like I probably would with a lot of other genres. And it just always kind of like felt like home. So by the end of the 90s, like my love affair with house music was like, it was like right there. It was like, there's really kind of no questioning it. It's just like a thing.
Well, that to me is what's so interesting about music and sampling, obviously, but even before sampling, right, is that two people could hear the same piece of music and be inspired in totally different ways.
Yeah. It's I mean, there's times where I'll listen to some Jay Dilla productions. It's so funny how everybody in the house world, I mean, he's a master. I mean, the torch was passed to him, and I don't really see, I don't know, it's just phenomenal. But anyways, I'll have the records that he has and he has sampled that I'll actually don't even, like, I didn't even know that he sampled off of, and I'll put it on my record player and look through for some samples, and I'll hear a piece that he's taken, I'll be like, how? Yeah. It's like the genius of that. Yeah. And that's actually, you can look at sampling as being kind of like an easy way to like make music and take somebody else's work, but the art form that is sampling and making a record out of that is like, to me, it takes just as much skill and just as much practice and just as much like talent and ear as picking up an instrument and playing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So was this all, you're talking about all these records, like, how were you discovering this stuff? Is it all record store, or were you out clubbing? Like, I don't know what the Connecticut scene was like. Are we going into the city?
Let's say null and void for the Connecticut. No, there was actually a good dance music scene. I think there was everywhere in the country at that time. I've always been really open to it. I remember somebody asking me, I was probably still in high school, like, how do you find these records? And it's just been like the people I've kept around me, influences I've kept around me. I mean, I've always been the type of person that if I heard something that was really weird and random that I knew I liked in background of a TV show or in a movie, like I would hunt and dig for it and look for it, as well as record shopping, as well
as... That's pre-Shazam.
Yeah, pre-Shazam. Yeah, when you had to like record it onto a cassette player and play it for some 3 people that you know and see if they knew it. But no, it's always just been kind of that openness to it. Yeah. Like, things find you. and I think I was lucky enough to be open enough to it and aware and like kind of have my eyes and my ears open to it that, you know, I'd like to think I have good cultured friends. If any of you guys hear this, you're welcome. But yeah, I, you know, a lot of the people in my life shared the same taste and stuff as me too. So always constantly pulling from them. It was really important for me to know like the classic stuff, you know, to have that good background in it, because especially nowadays, it's like to hear a record and know like maybe the process that it took to record it, or where they recorded it, or what type of synthesizer, or, you know, if somebody else is using a sample on a record. Like I like knowing that, like the history. I mean, and with house music too, it's like there's a really good emphasis on the history, which I think obviously is integral, you know, so we kind of stay true to a sound and, you know, have this essence of like what real music is, like everything. I mean, and you guys know the underground, it's like there's always been this emphasis on the underground to like stay true to your roots. Right. So, yeah, like just being really open to like the music around me everywhere and just taking it in from all sources. And
so at what point did you realize that this was a career, or did you like decide to?
Yesterday. No. I knew I wanted to do it for a career, like I said early on, like from a young age. So I knew it was a possibility. Okay. When did it actually kind of come to fruition? At some point last year, I remember I'd gotten my first major label remix taken, got accepted, and that was for Giorgio, Moroder, and Kylie, Minogue. Yeah. And I was in Grand Central. I forget where I was coming from. I got the call that they took it, like very nonchalant at the end of the phone call, like, oh yeah, they took your remix, by the way. Nice. And I remember being like, oh, cool, thanks. And then I hung up the phone. I'm standing there. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I think I'm a professional now. So that was nice. That was kind of the beginning of it. Yeah. And it was I mean, I'm very grateful because that was like a nice first step into the world of being a producer, DJ. And yeah, I think I always knew it was a career path. I think it actually, after that moment, it took a little while for me to kind of like let it sink in and like figure out what my place would be. Yeah. I mean, because I was working right up to that, you know. But everything in my life has always been a means to an end to be able to create more music and like live the life of a musician and sit in my studio in sweatpants and play with keyboards all day, every day.
Did you have somebody helping you, like, in those early, like, you know, as you're growing up and trying to be all about music in your life? I mean, it sounds like your dad, like, his taste of music was influential. What about, like, as far as thinking about music as a career?
Yeah, I did. I definitely had some good mentors. There was a gentleman who lives in my area now. His name is Ron Zabraki, and he was a big studio guy. He is a big studio guy all throughout, you know, 70s, 80s, 90s, today. And he took me in under his wing and, you know, showed me some really like fundamental things about studio recording. He was actually the first guy that I had met that like I could look at his life and be like, wow, you like actually do this, like you have a studio and like you make productions. And it was really inspiring to like see that, because I mean you hear about it, and to witness it firsthand is like a whole different story. Sure. Like, walk into somebody's home and be like, wow, you have like the gear that like I look at in magazines. It's awesome.
Yeah, like makes it real, right? Yeah.
So yeah, he was gracious enough to you know, show me a lot of the ropes with it, and just even have any like exposure and learn through osmosis with people like that was really big for me. And then this past year it's just been, I knew once that remix got accepted, not that I've ever been in like non-hustle mode, but like I knew once that went through, I was like, wow, I can make this happen. And it was like, it made me want to work harder, and I have been working harder. And
so what does that mean? Like, you get that rush of energy, you're like, okay, now's my chance. What do you do? What's the next step?
Hit the studio. I mean, for 2 years before that, I mean, I would fall asleep to like tutorials on Ableton and like synthesis design every night. you know, and it's like you not really hit plateaus, but you like break through these walls, these creative walls, and these walls that like kind of hinder your skills and like where you're at as far as like recording. I mean, because one thing we do is like, you know, as dance artists and producers, like kind of have to take care of everything ourselves,
right?
Or it's better if you take care of everything yourself, in my opinion. So, you know, everything from mastering, like I said, the synthesis design, to sampling, to, you know, what drum machines make what sounds and what synths are making these type of sounds. Like I like was really interested in that always, but you know, knowing that I kind of had a foot in the door and was moving towards like where I wanted to be as an artist. Yeah, it really put a fire under my butt to be like, okay, it's like no more fooling around, like let's get at this.
Nice.
Like, this is the opportunity, this is what I've been waiting for. And yeah,
cool.
And just knew I needed to work harder from there.
Yeah.
And I enjoy doing it too, so it's like the labor of love really kind of makes this process a little easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, before that though, you were making music, and what I've read is you weren't putting anything out. Like you were kind of keeping it to yourself.
Yeah, for the most part.
And then a track got to Todd Terry.
Correct.
So first of all, for anybody who doesn't know, can you give who's Todd Terry?
Todd Terry is the well, his nickname is Todd the God, and he is he's the father of what they call hip house. He basically, you know, first wave guy who really kind of culminated his own brand and style of house music out of New York in the 80s, and he's a pioneer. I mean, he's well respected, probably the nicest guy. I mean, I say this to everybody that I know and that knows him, literally the nicest guy I've ever met. And yeah, he's just a pioneer of really making like a true blue heavy, like New York City, like house sound. And that you feel in everything today. I mean, he had some freestyle stuff that he had done before the house music. And he always jokes that he kind of got into it as a joke, but he really was just like a true pioneer of house music. I mean, most people might know him from his Everything But the Girl remix, which was a huge, huge hit. Yeah. And I mean, he's just stood prolific from there. And I mean, if there's a guy who could do it with house music, like I feel like it's effortless with him. He like just has it in him. Yeah. So you're right. I wasn't really putting anything out. I was just kind of making it, just making demos and just making tracks that I thought was cool with really no intention for them. I'd send them to the people I knew. I send them to some good friends of mine who I knew might actually like it. I'd send it to my sister, you know, be like, hey, do you think this is cool? And she'd always been telling me she had a good friend that worked in the industry and worked with house stuff. And, you know, I actually had a number of years where I just wasn't even making music. Like, just the guitar would sit in the corner. Like, the computer was not on. Keyboards were probably sold. And so when I started getting back into it about 4 years ago, yeah, like I said, I would just be sending it out to the people I knew. And my sister said, you know, would you mind if I send this over to my friend? This sounds really good. And I was like, yeah, send it to whoever. I was just going to put it on SoundCloud and hope 15 people would listen. Yeah. So she sent it over to her good friend, Mary Beth, and who's currently, you know, the like driving force of my life as far as music. She's been, you know, taking care of all the managerial duties for me, which is amazing. And she got a hold of me. She said, I really like this. You mind if I send it to some people? And again, I was like, sure, it would just be on SoundCloud, getting 15, 20 listens. So absolutely. And then she got back to me pretty quickly after that saying that Todd wanted to pick it up and put it on his in-house records label. Nice.
What track was that?
It was called All I Need.
Okay.
All I Need. It's kind of funny. I had some vocals sitting around from a good friend of mine, Kiana, that had been there since like 2007, showing the gap of when I last recorded to when I started again. Wow. And yeah, I was just kind of working with those, and just, you know what, the nice thing is I was just making what I wanted to make and like what I felt. Same thing with the last release I did with Nervous Records. Like I kind of was just in a space where I didn't have anything tying me to doing any specific style like I would with a remix or anything. So with All I Need, it was basically me at home with no expectations, saying, "This sounds cool. I like this. This makes me want to dance. Hopefully, girls will dance. Let's put it together." And that's basically what happened. And Mary Beth got over to Todd. Todd got hold of me, and hence my beginning of my relationship with Todd and In-House Records.
Yeah.
I actually I couldn't even grasp the levity of what that would be like in my life at that point. I mean, knowing who Todd was, it wasn't like I was ungrateful or I didn't get who he was or what his scope was as an artist, but like realizing how pivotal a moment that was for me is like, it's kind of gives me goosebumps still to this day.
So did you realize that in the moment? Or like
I did
take a while to set in?
I mean, it took a while to set in. I mean, the farther I get now, the more crucial I realize it is, and how much of a defining moment it was for me. I was obviously grateful and appreciative at the time.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't think I realized the full scope of.
So tell me about what's Todd like to work with, and what are you learning from him?
Pretty much everything I'm learning from. Well, I mean, he's just a really good power of example on a lot of fronts. His production is always on point. And, I mean, there's times we did a collaboration together called Back Around. And I remember getting it back from him and hearing just how we just did drum programming. You know, the same thing I was saying with, like, finding samples and, like, how Jay Dilla would have an ear to pick out this certain part and to chop it in a certain way. Todd like has that gift with like drum machines, you know. Got the same gear sitting on my desk that he does, and to hear the way he like approaches it and goes at it, it's like it's so solid. It's just kind of one of those things where it can't really miss. You know, the guy like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And besides that, like he was the first person I really met in the industry, you know, that has a name. And like I said earlier, it couldn't be any nicer of a person. I remember after meeting him the first time, I said to Mary Beth, I was like, if everybody is as nice as him, this is going to be a cakewalk. I'm good.
Yeah. Maybe they're not.
Was that?
Maybe they're not.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, people like Todd and the rest of the people that work under the X-Mix umbrella are such legends. You know, it's nice to kind of have my name a little bit next to some of these artists, especially Todd. But I mean, these are the guys that have been doing it, and not even, you know, and it's also on a business side of, I want a career like they have too. I'm in this because I love this and I want to do this every day. And I think dance music at times gets a little bit superfluous, where people could be in and out and not really have a long withstanding, you know, lifespan doing this. And this, like I said, I've known since 14 this is what I want to do. So to see guys like Todd be able to do it and continue to do it and still have the bookings and still have like the draw for people and still have labels asking him for things and still be putting out his tracks as good as he is, it's like that's really inspiring to me too. Like I don't want to do this for a couple of years and then move on and do something else.
Right. Well, talk about the, you know, house music, the stuff you guys are making, you know, versus what we think of as EDM, which I think is like the sound changes so quickly. You know, every year there's a new EDM means something different, right? Yeah,
totally.
And you know, whereas the kind of house that you guys are making is, you know, we can listen to a record from 20 years ago and a record that's new and hear probably more similarity than differences.
Yeah, and you could spin one into the other and not have it feel like there's a 20-year gap in between two.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I think my musical background, the stuff we were talking about earlier, may put me in a different place, like as a producer, rather than, you know, and I'm not trying to look negatively on anybody and what anybody's influences are. We all have different lives, but I think having a pretty well-versed background in music and not only like hip hop stuff, but in rock, just knowing music in general, I think puts me in a really good spot. That and I think that's what Todd recognized early on, that I'm making a sound that might. I'm still trying to. Maybe he realized that like I'm making music that has a little transcendence and that will last a little bit, and being a little bit flashier, and like you said, whatever's cool in that EDM umbrella for the year, because like you said, you see it with a lot of different subgenres. It could have been electro house last year, it could be, then it was deep house, and now it seems like it's kind of moving towards techno as being kind of like whatever's like the most popular under that EDM umbrella. I like making music that lasts, and that have like a feel. Like I remember watching these production tutorials early on, and people talking about like vibe, and they're like, it was a lot less about sound, and it was a lot more about vibe and like what it makes you feel. So I like to think that when I sit down and approach something, it's more about feel. I mean, I've been doing it for so long at this point that I don't know if I could ignore that.
Right.
But I do try to go for like a feel, like a thing, like a tangible, like make you feel something feel. And hopefully that like transcends past like whatever current trends are going on, because I go back and listen to something from Todd or like Armand Van Helden from like, which isn't really long in the grand scheme of things, but 20 years ago. And
it's long in popular music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go back 20 years and we're talking, God, like In Sync or something. It's like, I mean, those probably still good records, but like I said, it's amazing to be able to create something today that I could spin into something that was made 20, 25 years ago and not like miss a beat. Yeah.
So how does that, obviously there's a pretty big generation gap. Probably a couple generations between you and Todd or Armand as well. How do you think how does that play out in the music, right? Do you think you can hear those differences in the records?
I can. It's but it's important to me to even know like how things were recorded back then. I mean, it's obviously I can't go back and like live through another time and see somebody else's experiences, but when I find the sound and like the feel of a record that I like, it's like important to me to know like, oh, we sampled that on an ASR 10, or that was an SP 1200, or that was an original 909. I kind of like a historian when it comes to that. Like that's been really important to me to know how to capture those sounds. So. I feel like sometimes like I'm trying to move backwards and trace things back, and a lot of people might be looking to like how to push things forward. I mean, and I have that big part of me too, so I think maybe with Todd and myself, I mean, and the technology and like what the gear is will always kind of unite all of us. There is a sound to this music. I mean, it's not like I'm going to pick up an accordion and make a house tune, I'm going to go right to a 909 and an SH-101 if I want to make a certain sound. So I think the technology and what we use to make this and really kind of unites us between generations. And also too, it's like kind of it's easy to lose sight of because it is such an art form. We're kind of here to make people dance, and if we're not going to be doing that, then like kind of why make the record? I had a long period of time too where it was like maybe over intellectualizing what this art form is and kind of losing track of like, oh, this is for people to go out to a club and dance on the weekend. You know?
How's the crowd different? I mean, again, when we think of EDM, I went to a Dead Mouse show and it's like, a bunch of 14-year-old girls in bikinis. It was a pretty messed up situation, but whatever.
Feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, for sure. But, it's definitely considered, the perception that it's music for teenagers, right?
Yeah.
What's the crowd like at a LaRock show or a Todd Terry show?
It's fun. Like, I think the difference between like what, to anybody who doesn't listen to electronic music, they're gonna hear a 4 on the floor beat and be like, cool, yeah, it's like techno or whatever they want to call it, or EDM. Yeah. I think the guys like us, like especially the house that we try to make, it's like church. Mm-hmm. Like this is like what we live, it's what we believe in.
So tell me about the crowd. Who am I going to see at one of your shows?
You're intellectual hipsters from the age 30 on. Okay. No, I don't know. It's kind of anybody who like I think has that appreciation for music. You know, it seems to be. I think that's what I was always really drawn to about house. It seemed to have like a really cultured, mature vibe in audience, and like the people making it all seemed to like kind of know something, you know. And it didn't seem like a club. I mean, dance music I think sometimes has a way of making people who don't listen to it feel like it's like an exclusive club that you can't get into. But the second you really start listening to music and seeing the people involved in it, it seems like a really welcoming community. So yeah, I would definitely say it's a little bit more of a mature sound, you know. Not that it isn't fun, but I think people really care about the music a lot, and they kind of less concerned whether it's going to be like their favorite artist headlining a festival over the summer. Right. It's like we're gonna go out and we're gonna have fun together and we're gonna dance together, and like this is what we do. And there's more. I think there's a lot more emphasis on the art and the fun and the feeling of it, and like enjoying yourself and life compared to what might be the trend.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and you know, we had Marcus Wyatt on the show, who's, you know, holds it down on the West Coast. And, you know, I think of, you know, his thing at Deep, and it's like you'll get people that have been fans and going to Deep for 10 years, 20 years to the same nights. You know what I mean? And I think that is really different, not to pick on, you know, the EDM guys, but I think that is really different where, you know, my perception of EDM, it's a lot like hip-hop or mainstream hip-hop in that you kind of have your phase, and then you kind of graduate out of that, you know. Like all my buddies that I grew up with listen to hip hop. Like they have jobs, and they're not. That's not what they listen to anymore. Yeah, you know. And
see them driving to work listening to 50.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't. You know, you got the kids in the back. Yeah. And I got one homie. I'm not gonna call him out, but his wife made him like get rid of his rap CD collection. Oh man, when they had kids. Yeah. But you know, but I think that's kind of. Like, I think there's an age limit on a Skrillex fan. Again, no, you know, that's not necessarily a reflection on him. Yeah,
absolutely.
But I think that's very different in the music that you guys are making, and that community, that culture is much more timeless. It's much like, so it's less susceptible to these trends.
Yeah.
But so talk to me about how you do that, though, because as we were talking about earlier, like your music is a reflection of stuff you hear, right? Like had you not grown up listening to Pink Floyd, definitely. That then led you to the next thing, and the next thing, you wouldn't be where you are now making this music. You might be making something different, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, you know, how do you? It almost sounds like the job of a house producer is like to tune that stuff out, like, and to not be influenced by it.
Yeah. Like I said, I might have had a different outlook on like what I wanted to do with this, as far as making music, and like where I wanted to take this and where I am taking this. But again, I think it's knowing the history and knowing, you know, I mean, there's obviously going to be records that always play, and as a DJ, I mean, there's going to be tunes that like you're going to throw on that are always going to work.
What's one?
Oh man,
what saves you on the floor?
I mean, I brought some vinyl out to New York a couple weeks ago, and I have Earth People, Pal Joey's Earth People's Dance, and it's just like such a funky, disco-y, like just floor stomper that always works. But like, you know, knowing tunes like that, and you know, a lot of every time I throw on Witch Doctor, like it's like half scares people, half gets, you know, people really pumped up.
Of course.
Yeah, and so it's like knowing tunes like that, and like that they work, and that people have loved them for so long. Like kind of having like, you know, you try to embody that a little bit. And like I said, not only knowing that, like knowing the sound, knowing like what the Korg M1 piano is, like these classic like presets, definitely enables me to try to make a little bit more of a timeless sound and really kind of put it like right there. I mean, because there was a really good quote by the producer Aeroplane. He's like, every time I sit down in the studio, I try to make a song that sounds like Daft Punk's Face to Face. And that's kind of not a bad place to come from, you know? And it's like, if I sit down with the intention of trying to make something that will persevere a little bit through time and not be like, you know, superfluous, I think I'm in a really good position. But yeah, I think it's knowing the history, you know, not only on like the what works in the dance, like on the dance floor end, but you know, like I said, what did they use to make this? You know, I still do it. I was listening to some drum and bass stuff the other day. I was like, how do they make those strings? You know, how did Goldie do that?
Yeah.
And I remember like searching around the internet for like 4 hours till I realized he just sampled some strings off of Blade Runner. Sorry, I didn't mean to ruin your secrets.
That's funny. But yeah, I think, you know, it's interesting. You think about these influences, and sometimes the job is keeping influences out. I heard I saw an interview with Bill Maher the other day, and he was talking about how he doesn't watch The Daily Show or John Oliver.
Makes sense.
And he says because he's worried that like it's going to influence his writing, right? And he, you know, if he tells the same joke, he wants it to be by accident, not because, you know, he saw something that made him change than what he's doing.
Yeah, having your own independent good idea that someone else shared rather than
Right.
piggyback on somebody. Well, that brings up a good point, because if I get something in for a remix, you know, I obviously want to represent the original song to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
Do a dance version, also have it be partly my own. I can't ever listen to another remix of the song.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I really don't spend a terribly large amount of time listening to the original, because that definitely permeates in and kind of gets to you. And
sure.
I will do. There'll be songs, and this happens more often than not. I'll get something that I really fall in love with, like one track, one record, and I'll get it. And I have a really good friend, and we always joke, like, he'll send me these songs, and I fall in love with them instantly. I'd be like, well, you just screwed up my production for the next month. Because I find, like, everything I want to make sounds like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And, yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, it's kind of like you got to put the blinders on a little bit. You know, and there's also times, too, where, like, I haven't gotten to a certain place with, like, maybe something like production, you know? So if I'm going to go ahead and listen to a tune that, like, really blows my mind, I might not necessarily be there yet, or have my head wrapped around it. And, you know, rather than sit, like, in my studio for 2 weeks trying to, like, make a kick drum that sounds like another kick drum, it's definitely better to, like, just tune out a little bit and just let what I have inside of me come out. Like, yeah, it's the process, man. It's like, it's always exploring. I mean, that's why I love doing it, and I could spend so much time doing it. But, like, yeah, you just got to get in there and do it and kind of tune the rest of the world out.
So when you know, you talked about a lot of years just making music. Probably not no expectation, but you know, relatively low expectation compared to a label's sending you parts for a remix and there's a check, you know, waiting, right?
Yeah.
So how does that change your process? Is it different making music for hire, or with an expectation, or even knowing that there's a fan base waiting to hear it?
Yeah, it definitely changes the process. Some parts for the better. I can't even say for the worse, but it's motivating. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, to know that I can't just wake up, drink 3 coffees, and then like go into the studio at my own leisure. Like, I gotta like kind of focus on this like it's a regular job. Yeah. Yeah. But it's good. Like, I like the work. I like working hard, and I like getting in there and really focusing. There was just a lot of little factors I think I was unaware of from the beginning, you know, and that was, like I said earlier, representing the original song, keeping some integrity of that, realizing that people are coming to me because they want dance remixes. It's not like I'm gonna, or a house remix especially. it's not like I can go in and make like a 15-minute ambient
Right. Sure.
vocal track over a weird synth. So there's that. And then also too, like, what's gonna work. I mean, obviously I'm gonna stay true to myself, but I want to make sure that I'm gonna be handing my homework back in. That's somewhat on task, like.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, I try to approach everything just to nail it 100%, and that's been the game plan from day one. Like, take every opportunity that I have, and just try to kill it. Just like, my manager Mary Beth always says we need that like big Tori Amos Armand moment where Armand Van Helden did the Tori Amos' Professional Widow, and like I can only imagine what that record label thought when he handed this monster back in. I mean, probably everybody played that record, like everybody. It was huge. It was like genre defining, like just an amazing track. Or like Todd with Everything But the Girl, where it just really stuck. So
was that is that going to happen again? Like, was that an era for house music where we're having these big tracks, big remixes?
Good question. Yeah, I think we're kind of there, there is a lot more house music and remixes being made these days.
Yeah.
Because of the available technology and people being able to do it a lot easier nowadays. I think so. I mean, the quality of tracks are definitely there.
Yeah.
And some of the remixes I hear are definitely there. Maybe not like, I don't know. It's hard to say because you had these big pop stars and these big acts getting these remixes done, to help the sales of the single. And then all of a sudden they grew their own legs and took off, which is phenomenal. I mean, it's happened. I can't think of any examples. And I mean, we're in a really good spot too. I mean, one thing I was trying to be aware of, like really getting back into this, like there is the waves, there's the doldrums, like it is really rad now and it's really cool now, and it might fall down a little bit and the scene might dwindle out a little bit, but I mean I'm okay with that. Like I love doing it too.
Yeah. And
you know what, we could talk about stuff like EDM or Skrillex or dubstep and how it might not like have a classic like historic sound to it, but it did bring dance music back in the homes and to people and to another generation of people big time. Yeah. And I think that the people who really did, that do love it, like were able to kind of absorb what was going on that might have been a little bit more popular and more of a trend and kind of dig a little deeper, like, guys like you and I always have, and find like good stuff. I mean, it's kind of how I ended up back here doing it again myself,
Nice.
Yeah.
So, and I think in house music and probably dance music, you're sort of expected, if you're a producer, you're also a DJ.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you didn't start out as a DJ.
I picked it up pretty early on.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I mean, late 90s.
Okay.
98, 97, 99 was very into it. And, but yeah, no, there was a lot of years where I didn't do anything actually. So I definitely wasn't DJing.
Right.
And,
so it's interesting.
It's definitely expected. Like, people assume that right away. Like, oh, okay, you're a DJ, cool. You make tracks, cool, and vice versa.
Sure, and it's probably, I mean, that's part of the business, right? That's how you make probably a lot of your income comes from DJing because people know the tracks and then they want to hire you.
Yeah, and a lot of the thrill too.
Right.
Otherwise, again, it'd be me in sweatpants with synthesizers.
Right.
It's nice to get forced out of the house every once in a while.
So it's interesting. Like they're different skills. But yet they always seem to go together, or
hand in hand.
That's sort of how the business has worked out, is that they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference?
No, they equally represent like both creative sides of me.
And do they? How does one help you with the other?
Getting back out there and starting to DJ again really helped production. Is like I remembered. To somebody who doesn't DJ or make records, if you listen to like your standard original mix of a dance track, you're like, why is there a minute and a half of basically just drums in the beginning of the track? Because
Right.
you're used to a pop format,
Yeah.
where it's like you might have 15 seconds before the vocals come in,
Right.
and verse, chorus. Like with, you listen to an original mix of a song, and sometimes you get, with a techno track, you get 2.5, 3 minutes even of an intro of a track. So getting back into DJing and really feeling that and feeling like why records work together and why the format kind of is the way the format is, really strengthened my production up again, because like I said, the stuff we listen to, even like the indie rock stuff, like the indie electronica that I was into for so many years, in between doing a lot of the electronic stuff, it's still essentially pop arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
So getting back in DJing, it was like, I see why there's a minute and a half intro on the track, and why there's another minute and a half, 2 minutes tacked on the end. So I could actually make these like records work together.
Uh-huh.
So that really helped. And then also too, like what makes people dance,
Yeah.
Am I staggering? Am I putting too much swing on my hi-hats? Am I staggering my kicks a little too weird? Is that synth way too, I don't know, annoying or like abrasive to the ear? It's just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Definitely, like when you have that moment when you're out playing a record in front of somebody, and it like really crystallizes like what's working, what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could sit home and try to picture it and pontificate over it all you want, but until you actually see people's like reaction to it,
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. And they definitely, there's a reason why they feed off each other and they go into DJing and the production go hand in hand. It's like kind of, I mean, I could sit at home and I can make tracks and think they're cool and then give them to other people and like let them go out and do it. But I mean, I want to perform them out to people.
Yeah.
I've always had the performance side of me, so getting back and doing it it's been so much fun. I love doing it. I mean, it's a rush and it's a thrill,
Sure.
big time.
What's different about DJing than when you were in a band on stage performing?
No safety net. I mean, your technology is the safety net,
Yeah.
but yeah, when you have 3 other guys, you could be a little loose with things.
Yeah.
And when you're the DJ, you're the one responsible to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and now more so than ever, it's not like we're sitting there with at least myself most of the time, it's not like we're sitting there with a giant crate of records and 2 1200s and
Right.
hoping the technology holds up and your
Sure.
needles are good and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like it's with the, CDJ setup.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good technological safe net, but being in bands, you got 3, 4 other guys. You can miss a note, you can miss a beat.
Mm-hmm.
If you scrub in a track and you're off, I mean that's all on you, man. All eyes on you.
Yeah.
Not to mention, like people are out to dance, people are out to like enjoy themselves, and I think a lot of people, especially with the popularity of DJing nowadays, like know when you're not mixing in, on the right beat or
Yeah.
phrasing's off or you're not beat matched correctly. Like, yeah, you're the party,
Sure.
like you got to keep that moving smoothly.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. It keeps me on my toes too,
Mm-hmm.
big time. Yeah, I love it. It's a good rush.
Nice.
Visioning it in my head for everybody who can't see me staring off into the distance.
Yeah, that's cool. So let's talk about business a little bit. Are you, do you think about yourself as a brand? Or do you like talk about that with your team? Or do you think about how to build kind of your brand?
Definitely how to build the brand and the name. And that's been something that I think I had a decent focus on from the beginning.
Yeah.
I never really wanted to put the cart before the horse. I see a lot of people spending a myriad of time on creating a cool logo
Mm-hmm.
and taking good press shots,
Mm-hmm.
and getting the outfit together, and like having a look and having this image created, and then you might be on Instagram looking at this and seeing them on a beach in a tank top and in like the one club that they played in, and this isn't directed at anybody, but I think just a
You
good
know who
example.
you are.
Yeah.
that guy.
You just lost me like 50 Instagram followers. Yeah, so it's like there was this emphasis on image, and I'll go click on their SoundCloud page, like, cool, this guy looks like he knows what he's doing, and there'll be like one mix from like 2 years ago, and like no tracks.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, cool, like my recording setup is my weapon. Like, let me use that as like my tool to like work at this and get further. I mean, I'm interested in all the other stuff too, just as anybody else is, but my emphasis has always been on like, let's get some great recordings done. Like, let me have a thing. Like I said earlier, it's like you paint, you have paintings. You write, you have a book. Like, you're a producer, DJ, you have tracks. So
I I can see that from the fact that, you have a pretty good catalog up
there.
online.
Thank you.
But you don't have a ton of followers. You're not like super active in social media.
Getting there.
Okay.
Getting there.
So I guess I'm asking, is that like how much is that intentional? Because there's plenty of guys, at your level, whatever that means, who like have, 5 times as many Facebook fans.
Yeah, totally.
And then there's debate of whether it helps them or not.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, we're at a point where, social media is so vast and it ends up being your business card.
Right.
If you owned the club and my name came across your desk, you would basically go right to Facebook and see what I was working with.
Yeah. Does that come up?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Not that I haven't wanted to push and hustle for that, but I'm kind of in the school of thought, like I'm trying to earn the fans and like keep them there.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people who will buy some likes.
Yeah, you can trick the system.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But then also too, it kind of bites you in the butt at the end, because if you put up a post and you really want people to see it and that you have a track out or you have a remix or you're doing a gig somewhere and 3 people like it, yet you have like 5,000 Facebook likes, it ends up, I feel like, kind of hurting you, like, so me, I'm trying to like earn fans the old fashioned way and keep them around, and like hopefully that they are captivated when they do find out who I am, and that they like my music. And
where is that coming from? Is that your plan? Is that Todd? Is that Mary Beth? Like,
actually, the gentleman I mentioned earlier, my friend Ron, he told me early on, he was like, there's 2 ways of doing this.
Yeah.
You can do what's happening right now, and you can get popular real fast and have a short lifespan in the music industry, and then hope maybe you'll get a behind the scenes job if you're lucky, or you could like really earn fans, and you could like earn people and listeners, and they'll be loyal to you for the rest of the time you do it. Todd's a really good example of that. He has like real fans. He's got people that listen, that come to his shows, whatever cities, and I don't know, maybe it's my Italian work ethic too. But no, I mean, I feel like there's a right way and a wrong way to do things, and like I'm in this. Like, I love this. Like, anything that'll afford me the pleasure of being able to do this for a job for as long as I can. Like, I'd rather take the slow approach to it and make sure we're doing it right.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't take overnight success, but I think also too that might diminish you as an artist, and a couple years down the road, like, the guy with the one big hit might not necessarily be the guy you want to like still buy his records,
Yeah.
So just trying to take the slow route.
Right. So, and do you think about does the concept of selling out ever come up? Is there stuff that would feel like a sellout to you that you just wouldn't do?
Yeah, there's definitely stuff I wouldn't do.
Give us, what's an example?
I mean, I hear it more in sound. If I was to do a track, and then you mentioned Skrillex earlier, like do one of his typical dubstep-y, like glitched out basses. One, it doesn't fit me.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not interested in that sound and what that is, and especially from a technological standpoint, but not really like a genre or where like an area that I want to touch on. I don't know. It's hard to say until it's right in front of me.
Have you been confronted with that?
Not necessarily. I think the people who have approached me for work and that listen, to what I do, like yourself, like I think you get like a pretty good idea of like what I do and like what keeps me going and keeps me making music. So it's never really been. I've never really had anything that's made me feel terribly uncomfortable at this point,
Yeah.
And it's like somebody like. Okay, the first remix I had picked up with Giorgio, Moroder, and Kylie Minogue. Well, here's two pop stars, mega pop stars, that people have known forever. I mean, it's hard to look at that as being like something that's selling out. You know what I mean? That's an amazing opportunity from two really great artists. And I got to make the music the way I wanted to. So there's like a lot of variables to play into that.
Yeah.
No, I will not sell out. I like what I do, like, and I think the bigger picture is, like, I like it. Like, I love making music, and I like what I do, and having that, like, long-term love for it and wanting to continue to do it, I think that kind of gives me a little bit of a filter of not putting out anything that's going to be superfluous or trendy or poppy or quote unquote selling out.
Yeah. So a lot of guys in your business, you reach a certain point of success.
I'll let you know when I get there, Josh.
But a typical path, right, is then you create a label.
And
you start working with other acts. Is that you think about that? Is that like is that the long-term vision? Or is there a long-term vision?
Yeah, there's definitely a long-term vision.
What is it?
I mean, a label sounds nice. Just handling Facebook and Instagram is a lot of work. I don't know how these guys do it.
Yeah.
It would be nice. It'd be very nice to do that.
So if it's not that, I mean, you don't have to do what I say. But.
No. I mean, you're right. I mean, that's kind of the standard model for what's going on in the house world. And I think it enables a lot of guys to really put out their own releases when they want to put them out. Not have to worry about anybody else's influence also taken. I mean, this is it's like a big family, so you're always going to know a couple guys who are doing what you're doing too.
Right.
So there's always like other talent around. I would like to at some point, but I'm lucky enough at this point, and it's exciting for me too, and it helps me network a lot more to be able to release under other people's labels, like the Nervous EP that I put out a couple weeks ago. I mean, that was super exciting to me. Like, here's this stalwart of the music scene.
Sure.
New York City through and through. And again, I made that EP just like, I just made whatever the hell I wanted to make for that one. And that like felt good to me. And so for them to pick that up was really awesome. So I'm enjoying putting stuff out on other people's labels at this point, especially being able to get to their fan base and the people that pay attention to them. I mean, that's been really helpful for me. Long term, I mean, if I could still be doing it like Todd in another 20 years, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Love to tour. I love to travel.
So how do they get? There's a lot of guys his age that are still doing that, right? From Louie and Kenny to Junior, Sneak, Dan, you mentioned, right? So, how are those guys? Like, are they receptive to a young cat kind of coming up in their ranks? Is there any like resistance or people sort of questioning?
No, I've had nothing but love. It's been really cool. I remember talking to some people. Todd had me down to do a gig with him that he was hosting. It was him and Kenny Dope and Junior and Al Technique and I mean, forgive me if I'm forgetting anybody, but it was a group of guys that I basically walked in the room, thought I had a wrong email, but I showed up anyways, and Scribble was there and Michael Moog and just like these guys I've known forever, not known of forever. Yeah. So I walk into this room and I don't know what their perception was of me. I mean, I'm 34. I'm not 19. I'm not 21. Like, I look like I'm 19. I act like I'm 14. But I walk into this room and it was definitely intimidating for me especially to be around all that talent. And I'm sure there was probably a little bit of a moment where like, okay, what's this kid do, you know? But again, everybody trusts Todd and loves Todd, and he does what he does so well that I don't think they like have some like weird trap EDM guy come in and like spin records with him. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how it is from the outside with anybody else, but everyone's been really receptive to me. And like I said, I try to like let the sound speak a little bit more for me too. And just like represent myself from the music rather than like try to put on much of like a public image. Right. Because honestly, if people saw me, I know this is radio land, but I look young.
We got video.
I look young, you know, and
yeah, you definitely don't look 34.
Yeah, it's cool. I love it. Thanks, yoga. But yeah, no, it's really been nothing but love. I think it actually pushes me to be a little bit truer to it because of that, you know. Because I've had a lot of support and because I've been able to work with some amazing people. It's motivating, and it's like it's nice. Like the people that I know, you know, through Todd or through just the people I know in New York, like it feels like a family, and like everybody kind of knows each other, and everybody's like really receptive. Everybody loves each other's tracks. Everybody goes see each other play. Yeah, it's a good feeling, man. I felt no resistance from anybody.
Nice.
It's good. Yeah.
Nice. Well, a couple more questions. You know, you talk about yoga. So
to everybody all the time.
Yeah, so do I, man. We're big believers in keeping the whole, it's all got to fit together, right? The body and the mind and the spirit balance and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Big time.
So, what else do you do?
I think I named all the things.
Okay.
No, this is my passion. So if left unchecked, I will sit and write music and record and DJ for days and days and days on it until I basically like become a recluse, shut in. People have to drag me out of my house. I put an emphasis. I mean, I like being healthy. Like it's a good life. It's good to be healthy. It feels good.
Yeah.
Whenever it feels good, I'm into it. So, I basically do a lot of yoga. Shout out to Heather Rems Corwin. And I basically I live a very simple life. You know, I go see DJs spin, get some inspiration, record, try to be healthy, try not to drink too much coffee. It's basically it.
Yeah.
It's a nice life.
For sure. Who's your favorite DJ?
Good question. Let's go with producer. Well, Todd's my favorite DJ, hands down.
Like live? Out in the club?
Hands down.
Okay.
He is so dialed in. I just watched a live feed of him in Brazil for Boiler Room the other day, and it's like after all these years, he's just in the zone, like just heavily focused on it. And you listen to his sets, and it's fun, and it's like he's got like you could to me doing it as well. Like I could feel his control, like he's got it down. Like that guy don't need help.
Yeah.
Production wise, I've been really. I mean, I'm always into this weird dark UK. Maybe not necessarily dark, but like warehousey feel. And over the last year, like A1 Bassline and Leon Vinahall, and then their project together, Laszlo Dance Hall. It's just like it represents this weird side of me that I, it's like kind of hard to put in words, and that you don't really hear coming out of the States a lot. It's like definitely to me like a unique, like London UK type of sound, and that really influences me. But I'm really open to a lot of the subgenres and a lot of what's going on in the house world, and try to bring it back and make it my own. Yeah.
Are you a reader?
I am a reader.
What do you read?
I just got The Alchemist from a good friend.
Nice.
Started reading through that. A lot of Taoist stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, the Book of Lao Tzu.
Yeah.
I Ching.
How'd you get turned on to that? I read a lot of Taoist stuff.
Do you?
Myself, yeah.
Early 20s, spiritual awakening. I don't mean to kind of muddle through that, but I think a lot of people get it. And I remember getting turned on to Buddhism, and it seemed a little nihilistic for me at the time. Especially because I like things, and I didn't want to accept like a...
You have to give everything away?
Yeah. I mean, to being younger...
That part sucks.
Yeah. Well, being younger, and when you read that, it's a little scary. And then I remember reading the Tao of Pooh, actually. I think it was one of the first Taoist readings I read. And and going with the flow and letting things happen, and, you know, just like having a resistance-free life seemed pretty attractive to me. I didn't put it into practice till years later, but yeah, it that means a lot to me, you know. And I think I don't really try to force anything with what I'm doing now. And that's been a really good lesson. It's like, you know, I'm gonna take all the opportunities I get and do them to the best of my abilities, and you know, I just kind of letting it go, man. Like I said, letting the track speak for me, and like letting the work come, and letting the people hear it. And yeah, it's been good. I mean, it's how we met, you know, kind of going with the flow. And
exactly.
This has been nice.
Right on. Well, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been good getting to know you, and come back anytime you want to promote something.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I know it's not your thing, but where can folks find you on social?
Oh, it's very much my thing. You can find me at facebook.com/LaRock. Same across all the socials, soundcloud.com, LaRock, Instagram, LaRock. Go check it out. You guys will be surprised.
Dope. All right, thanks.
Cool. Thanks, John.
And we out. That was LaRock with a great interview. Hope you liked it. Send us a comment on Twitter at Rebel Radio Net, or leave us a review on iTunes. And as always, come back next week for more Rebel Radio. Later.